Awesome. Okay, kia ora everyone. I am Elizabeth Pretty, and on behalf of the New Zealand Association of Resource Management, thank you for registering for the webinar on Meeting the Capability Challenge, a new way to assess and build capability. For those of you who are not familiar, NZARM is an association for professionals involved in the natural resource management, particularly the land and water space. NZARM webinars are produced out of the NZARM Capability Building Project, a 3-year program where NZARM has partnered with the Ministry for the Environment and regional councils to support the upskilling of individuals across the sector. We are lucky enough to have Matt Highway here today, an Environmental Director at Environment Innovation and Strategy and the CEO of NZARM. Matt has been working within the sector for a while across catchment, biodiversity and the land management space, working across regional councils for the primary sector and within environmental consultancies. Before I hand over to Matt, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, could you please put them in the Q&A at the top of your screens, and we'll answer these towards the end. Awesome. Thank you, and I will now hand over to Matt.
Thank you, Eliza. Kia ora koutou e te whānau, ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Ko Matt Highway ahau, he kai mahi hau mātua kai whakahaere, NZARM, New Zealand Association of Resource Management. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Look, welcome everyone. Thanks very much for joining in. As Eliza said, I'm Matt Highway. I'm the Chief Executive for NZARM, and we'll be talking to you and hopefully getting some feedback too along the way about this new way that we're sort of looking at capability. So I've got some slides here. Hopefully you can see everything okay. We can get into it. So look, disclaimer here before I start, NZARM is full of natural resource management professionals. By and large, we're a volunteer organisation. There's a few paid staff like myself. But, you know, so we're real environmental, rural landscape type people, not necessarily HR or others. So we'd love some feedback on what we're about to present today. But this is one way that we've really understood capability as a real challenge for us, and how we're trying to address it. So thanks, bear with me, let's go. So first thing I'd like to say is I think capability matters. It really matters. Having capability in yourself, the organisation, across the country is super important. And like many things, this guy here, Homer Simpson, a bit of a font of all knowledge, will be able to sort of demonstrate this through, you know, the Simpsons. So as you can imagine, Homer's very capable. He's very capable at doing things like eating donuts, but he also works at a nuclear power plant. And for Homer, you know, it's pretty stressful because he has a challenging job, and not having the capability he needs is massive, right? And we've all been there. We've all started a new job, hopefully not put into a position like Homer, but we've been promoted. And kind of the more capable you get, the more confident you are, and the quicker you can build capability, the less stress you sort of have. Homer does have a history of poor decision making, basically built on capability. This is how he's making decisions, just by random. This often manifests, I suppose, in a professional sense, more around management capability or strategic decision-making capability. And, you know, decisions can be quite different based on the capability of the people, the teams, or the organizations that are making them, right? And of course, not having much capability in your job or whatever it might be you're doing can have dire consequences. You know, obviously, not many of us are on the button for nuclear power plants, but, you know, we could lose customers, we could lose our opportunity for a promotion, we could, you know, lose millions for shareholders if we're in that type of work. So it has dire consequences. So Homer's approach to kind of his lack of capability, I suppose, is to fake it till you make it. So he, yeah, absolutely faking it here with fake eyes on while he has a sleep. But more importantly, I think, is the intergenerational or leadership to early career people or experienced people to new people. transfer of this capability as well. So if we're got highly capable people that can teach those people coming in, fantastic as well. So capability really matters. And in this case, the opposite might occur. So away from the Simpsons for a second and just talking about it from more of a research perspective. So this group here, the BOC group, so the opposite of Homer really. These guys are researchers, professors, in business development. BOC group defines capability as the building blocks to enable an organization to meet its goals. So they've presented this picture here to say that capability is the biggest cog in the machine, the biggest wheel we can turn. So really it's the engine room for an organization, right? Super important. So what is it? What is being capable? So it is, as some definitions from Google help me with, having an ability, being competent, being efficient, the ability to complete a task effectively, someone who is capable, has the skill or qualities necessary to do a particular thing very well, or in cases is able to do most things well, highly capable skills across many things. If you look at our friend here on the right-hand side, you could say his job is to build sandcastles. Doesn't sound very flash until you see the capability, the massive skill that he can apply to building sandcastles. And forgive me for anyone who doesn't like clowns, but there we go. So if capability matters so much, then we ask ourselves a question, why are we building capability by random? So why were we grabbing experts that were available? Just someone had some time so they could train us. Not always the courses or the experts we needed. We were grabbing courses that were already built, so we'd use those, and we're not always sure that they were the right people. And we're creating training events, and I'm guilty of this, based on interest and not need. So, for example, in our field around natural resource management, we might have, let's say, a nitrogen problem. We focus a course on a nitrogen bioreactor, which is really interesting and modern and cutting edge. But it actually might not shift the dial quite as much as a farm systems or nutrient understanding or fertilizer budgets, those sorts of things. So got to be careful that we're doing the right things in the right places. So I think it's been pretty random. So if capability matters so much, then I guess why are we unlikely to know our own skills? I'd love to know if anyone out there has a really good understanding of their own individual skill set. I certainly don't or didn't. Where our organizational or our team skills are and where the gaps are. How many people there are in our region, and where does the capability lie and where is it kind of missing? And nationally, of course, as well, like we've got some significant challenges across all of those levels. But nationally, you could think about, climate change or sea level rise or soil conservation, a bunch of things. We've got massive land use change happening. Where is our national skill sets to sort of manage these big problems? So I guess, if capability matters so much, why are we unlikely to know where those skills are and how to access them? We don't know what skills there are or where they are in the country or how to find those people. So where can I find someone who fixes the problem that I'm trying to solve? So I guess lastly, and really importantly for us, we don't know the capability gaps. So if we don't know the gaps, how do we do something about them? If we can find the gaps, then we can direct the training, the mentoring, the connections to build that capability across individuals, organizations, regions, etc. So we think capability really matters. And the way that we're addressing it is through this thing called the capability builder. And it's around addressing that gap that we just talked about. So in summary, and I'll go through this in a little bit more detail, the capability builder is a bunch of things. It's an assessment of individuals' capability. It's a place where we store data to be able to make evidence-based decisions. It's a really purposeful approach, and it's non-random, so to understand and build capability. And it's a program that targets specific modes of capability building. So we want to find the right sort of capability building for the right kind of problem, the right need. And finally, it's a framework that can be shaped to build any capability profile, and it's a platform that can be scaled to other places. Like this is, we're environmental and rural type people. This could easily be for police, nurses, astronauts, coal miners. It's a system that you could use. So that's why we think it's kind of useful. So our capability builder is just all digital. You access it through our website, nzarm.org.nz. And, that's where you can go through a whole bunch of things. It's all free as well, so please make most of that. It's pretty simple. You just fill out some questions. There's 2 questionnaires. Doesn't take very long. So as an individual, we're just going through 2 questionnaires. One is around my career and where I work and my education. And the other one really focuses on your skill assessment. And we've got 13 different capability areas. Sorry, it does say 12 in there, but there's 13 now. Just build a new one in. And that understands that in those capability areas, how skillful are you in those individual areas? So what does it give you? It just gives you as an individual some information back about yourself, like how skilled you might be in certain areas, how experienced, where you might work in the country, and some badges as well around, what you can do. So this is through 2 different individual web pages that you get, and there's a lot more information in there as well, but these are the key kind of things. So let's go into a little bit more detail. This is really the heart of the data collection, I suppose, which is around those 13 different capability areas and where your skill set lies. So we've weighted it, and you can weight these things whichever way you want. One is in a self-assessment, so ask you some questions around each skill area. Second one, which you'll see is heavily weighted towards experience. So that's from feedback to say, hey, we want experienced people to be given more credibility here. And the third one, which is quarter of the marks, is around training and qualifications. So the first one, self-assessment, obviously subjective. The second 2, 80% of the score that you have, a lot harder to kind of be subjective, a lot more objective. One thing I just wanted to go into, though, was around training qualifications. This is one of the calculators that we've got on there that's probably worth exploring a little bit more. And I think it's really useful, and hopefully this makes sense as I go through. So going back to the questionnaire, you're asked a couple of things around your tertiary qualifications, and then, of course, your short courses as well, which is really important because you can, the tertiary qualifications, you can put those on the end of your name. But a lot of these short courses and experiences we have aren't normally recognised. So we wanted to make sure we did that. So it runs through a matrix. So we've looked at 113 different courses in NZARM's kind of field, I suppose, natural resource management. We've overlaid those 113 different courses with 124 different competency areas, and those are split into our 13 skill areas. So that's what you saw before, the land and soil and the Te Ao Māori and people in leadership, facilitation, etc. Those are again weighted by difficulty. So if our course has 30 of those competencies, they're then split into, are they an intermediate, introductory, or advanced? So they're weighted again to give you a different score. So that gives you the training score. So if we go back just a couple of slides here, and if we look at this waterway management one, that's the last part of that waterway management. So this example profile, that big chunk there is from training. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's the matrix approach. So this is all very well and good. Matt, there's a survey and you present some data, but how does it help? How does it address those sort of problems? So we think it helps having this evidence-driven approach. So really less random. That's, we're saying that things are random. We want to make them less random. So what does it do? People enter their data. That's great. We have a whole bunch of people kind of involved in this capability assessment tool and part of our programs, and we link them up with mentors and all sorts of things. So we get to understand people a little bit more. So what's great and really important to NZARM is we get to know a little bit about you as an individual. So where in the country you are and how we might help you, what sort of courses, what's your career look like. What are you after? And what sort of courses are you hoping to do? Who do you want to connect with? And we try and use this information to help facilitate that. The second part, I suppose, and quite interesting as well, is we look at everyone as a collective. So now, for the first time in our field anyway, we start to have a collective understanding of capability. So if you look at that, most obvious way to look at that, and if you think about things like freshwater farm plans, we need to know where people are, or delivering catchment action plans, regionally, who is available in the regions. So we did a subset, there's about 200 odd people, a couple hundred people anyway in there in our sample group. And this is what the data sort of looks like. So in the sample group of all these people across the country, this is where they can operate. So all that does say is, in this sample group, what's the capacity in different regions? And you can imagine as this data set grows, it'll be far more accurate and useful. So we've got 50 plus people who can work in the Waikato, right the way down to the West Coast, a dozen or so people who are sort of operating there in the sample group. So just take it with a grain of salt. So it's kind of interesting, and we can do this across anything we want in the country. So if you look at that skill profile again, we can start to pick out different profiles that we're after and find out where those people are in the country. And almost not unlimited, but hundreds of different ways we can chop and dice the data. So if you look at a real basic one, you might do something like this. So give me all the people who are skilled in freshwater ecosystem management. And here they might be in blue. Okay, well, that's really good. So, okay, we've got a bigger problem though. We've got to set some national freshwater policy. We need a really highly skilled, deep skilled people. And you can start to pull those people out as well through this data. At the other end of the scale, you might want to really, like NZARM does, want to help people. You might want to focus on early career people. So where are those people who are really wanting to learn about freshwater ecosystems? Whereabouts are they in the country, and how might we best service them? So we can start to chop the data in whichever way we want. So the other way, obviously, to look at this is, hey, here's the freshwater ecosystem people. Where are they also? Do they also understand farm systems? So we can look at, overlay bunches of different things. This could be 10 different things you looked at. But it just enables you to chop the data and to find the people you're after, or help them better. So back to our sample group. So this is just one question of many, many, many. So I just thought it was quite interesting to have a look over our sample group of a couple hundred people, where their sort of sectors are that they could work. And you could tick more than one option, of course. So these are the basic options we have. As you can see, there's a lot of people who are in the agriculture area, sheep, beef, dairy. There's a lot of understanding of those sort of farm systems. Very little, I suppose, in viticulture, which probably makes sense given it's a much smaller, although awesome, sector in New Zealand. And then, things like freshwater ecosystems, like it's potentially a little bit lower than you'd expect given the amount of freshwater challenges out there compared to our, understanding of primary production. So just interesting information. If you look at this from a regional point of view, same question. We can split this out as well. This is Waikato, Auckland, and Gisborne. And we can start to kind of look at some interesting stuff as well. So if you look at the Waikato again, which is that top bar, lots of skills around primary production again, forestry and sheep, beef, dairy. But that doesn't seem to match the freshwater challenge, So maybe there's an opportunity there around freshwater ecosystems. If you look at Auckland, quite an urbanized region, or probably more urbanized than others, I can ask the question, is NZARM actually reaching those people who are highly skilled at urban management as well, urban systems or landscapes? The other thing, like Gisborne, there is, a fair amount of viticulture, wine industry in Gisborne, very good one. I guess we've got no one who is skilled in this sample group from Gisborne who is saying they can work in those systems. So is that an opportunity for NZARM to reach out to that system? Or is it the fact that, some of our advisors might be better at the social engagement side of things of wine than the professional. So enables us to answer some more questions, dig a bit deeper, and do something about it. All right, so the opportunity, probably pretty obvious, is, you know, we can connect people. That's a massive one. We can connect people with the right skills, match them to a team so that, you know, they're solving whatever problem that there is, or train each other or mentor each other, whatever it might be. We can shuffle things around because we know more about it. From the data, so from our sample group, just some interesting things, digging into a little bit more of the, I guess, skills focus. So 60% of our advisors have less than 5 years experience in those core capability areas that we discussed. So very interesting. Only 1%, and remember we've got a couple of hundred people there, feel confident enough to teach biodiversity related topics. So we asked them a question on, you know, and the highest one is, could you teach others? And only 1% could say that across the biodiversity questions. Only 28%, so less than a third of the sample group, can practically apply their knowledge in greenhouse gases and climate change. Probably, I don't know if this is a concern necessarily, but I would say that given this is such a huge topic, super important for the world, and we have an ability to do something about it in our rural landscapes, that might be a bit of a challenge. So, I mean, what's going on here and what can we do? Well, the low level of experience, I suppose, we can start to match those people to mentors. That's part of our program. We can really understand early career people, their specific knowledge gaps, start to address them through training, pairing them with experienced people, doing events, accessing digital knowledge hubs, whatever it might be. We can actually start to do something about that. So yeah, 1% of people feel confident to teach biodiversity. Is there a training gap? I'm not really aware of post, you know, university courses that enable us to learn more about restoration ecology or biodiversity in New Zealand. So maybe there's a training gap. The other question, I guess, is for our membership and for New Zealand's problems in this area, is it a core skill? I guess I assume it is, but, you know, it enables us to start thinking about that as well if we're not skilled in it. And, you know, from greenhouse gases, we know there's some very good courses, university courses out there. Just have to check, are they fit the purpose? Are they enabling people to go out there and deliver climate change? Did those people that don't feel confident, did they do those courses? And if there is courses out there, is there any competencies that might be missing? Because we can run it back through that matrix and check it out. So we can start to not only help individual members, but our training organizations and others. So the data is really useful. So final points. So our capability program, it really is evidence driven. So if we go back to our first slides, wanted to take out the randomness. It's a really purposeful way to build capability. Your information is private to you. Hopefully that was, it's a key point to bring up. People go through the survey, we aggregate it, we don't tell people about it unless you want us to. It's free. It's free for anyone to go through. You'll also get free membership for NZARM until April 2025. So I would encourage people to get amongst it. And on that note, we really need more and more people to do this. So we can't help individuals, organizations, regions if people aren't really using these surveys and providing the information, getting involved. Yeah, there's lots of training available. There's probably 10 or so things on the NZARM website right now through digital training, in-person training, mentoring. There's a whole bunch of things in there. And soon, it's in a prototype at the moment, you can advertise your skills. So if you're a consultant like I am, I could use this tool here to make sure that people can find me. So people might be looking for someone who is, whatever, in Southland, who is highly skilled at greenhouse gases and nutrient management. They might pop to the top of the list using this filtering tool that we have to advertise people's skills. You might even want to do that from a regional council or government point of view as well, just so people know where to contact. And finally, again, it is a platform that is scalable. So this approach could be used in whichever sector we wanted to. You know, obviously there's some tweaks that you would have to make, but it's built in a way that you can do that. So last slide. Thank you. Thank you for listening to me for such a long time. Please go and access the capability assessment tool. I'd love you to go through it, even if you're just having a play. You can access it through nzarm.org.nz. And finally, massive thanks to the people who made this program possible, the people within NZARM and the executive there, but also our funders for this project. Most of the regional councils, apart from 2 smaller ones, and a Ministry for the Environment, who have been an absolute pleasure to work with and co-design a lot of this stuff with. I think they've done a great job in helping support capability building. And yeah, that's it. Thanks again. Thanks, Eliza.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. We do have a couple of questions here. So the first one we've got is, how does the CAT differentiate between short-term skill gaps and long-term capacity building needs?
Short-term skill gaps and long-term capacity building needs. So I'd love a better definition there if that's possible. I guess I'd like to think it does both. Hopefully this answers your question. So from a short-term skill gap point of view, that's something that you might operate at a different scale to an individual. So if you think about it from a regional scale, you might have a short-term, you understand this, you've got freshwater farm plans to deliver, there's a real skill gap in land and soil management or land use capability. You can identify that, and then you've got a skill gap. You do something about it immediately. You put on training, you connect people up to learn from each other. So that's identifying that initial skill gap in your region. The second part of it is probably at a different scale again, which is individually. So this is long-term capability building. And we know that a single course isn't going to do that. Like there's I like to think about capability in 2 ways. One, there's general capability skills that enable you to think in a certain way, solve problems, and whatever's thrown at you, you usually get this through experience. Whatever's thrown at you, you can manage it or know where to find the information. And then there's skills that, hey, I just need to get much better at nutrient management and learning overseer and whatever else. Yeah, that's more through training and learning on the job with others. So that long-term capability you might build through mentors, through ongoing training, through ongoing learning experience, and that's at the individual level. And then the other stuff is probably at a much larger scale, just trying to solve the problem immediate to you. Hopefully that helps. Probably repeated myself, apologies.
So we've got another one here is, will anyone still be able to access the capability builder after April 2025?
Yes, it won't go anywhere. It will be, it's free to use. It's part of our core service. It will only grow. It is already growing. So yeah, it's kind of an extension of what NZARM was already doing, just a slightly different way. Yep. So we don't anticipate it going anywhere. So please get involved. Don't be worried about that. You wouldn't have wasted your time.
So in terms of once you've completed your capability profile, do you receive any kind of formal recognition?
What you do get is you get a couple of different pages on the NZARM website. One is really just around interacting with NZARM, which courses you've logged in for, and where you're at, and change your profile and those sorts of things, how you interact with NZARM. The second one is your capability profile, which is a full page of stuff, and some of it you saw today. The formal recognition, so you can print that out and give that to your manager or whoever else you might do. What's really useful about formal recognition here is, like it or not, what we've discovered is we're starting to build standards. And it's really interesting question, I think, because even something like land use capability, which has been in this country for a long, long time, must be 50 plus years, we don't really have any standards around what does highly capable land use capability mean? What does even land use capability mean in itself? So what we're doing is starting to detail that out and build standards. So if you're saying you're highly skilled in LEC in Auckland, it should be the same as in Otago. Should mean the same sorts of things. So we're starting to get consistency. So I think it's valid, and it does have something that you can hold up and say, this is where I'm at. The last thing I would want to say, and it's not there yet, it's part of our development over the next 6 months, is like a certification type board. So if you wanted to use this information in anger, environment court, or whatever it might be through your HR team, it would be you could run it through that panel as well, and that would also give you another level of assurance that, hey, Matt said he was really highly skilled at land and soil, but his managers don't think so. Here's probably where he's at, and here's the evidence. So we're building that in. It's a good question. Our goal, sorry, I'm rambling a little bit, but our goal really was to help build capability rather than prove capability. That's a good point. A very good question.
So you mentioned just a couple of things there, but what are the next immediate steps for this?
We've got 2 things in draft. One is that SkillFinder. It's actually going to be called the SkillFinder. So there'll be another page on the website that uses this CAT data. So if you want to it's an opt-in thing. If you want to be found, you just tick a box and, okay, I want to be found. So if I go through, I'm a farmer or a regional council or a consultant, I want to find someone who's highly skilled at a certain thing, they can find you, and which region you're working in and those sorts of things. So that's in beta version, I suppose. It should go live next month. The second one is sort of more around career development, which is that matrix I discussed, which is we just reverse engineer that. So we've got 113 courses in there. One of my goals is to upskill in Te Ao Māori, and so I tell the machine, the matrix, that, and then it spits out the courses that are most likely going to build that skill for me. So that's just a course. So SkillsFinder and a course finder. Those are the next 2 immediate things in the next month. The last thing we've already spoken about, which is really using this as a robust system, I think, as more people kind of use it and see the opportunity it presents, then we do need some far more checks and balances probably in there, standardization or building standards. It's probably outside of our skill set, but there's some amazing people in the country that can help us do that.
Awesome. A couple of questions here about how does the capability assessment address soft skills within resource management?
Yeah, that's such a good question, which is, probably the most important thing, right? For most careers, how we interact with each other and how we can. Resource management is often salesman skills, but we do have some in there. I guess soft skills. Te Ao Māori might be called a soft skill, but we do have facilitation and people change in there as well as soft skills. We could build some more in there, and I'd be really open to feedback on that, how that might go. But certainly facilitation is built in there, and that's why we've got some really great trainers training people across the country in facilitation at the moment. It's just recognizing that's a core skill. Yeah, thanks. Good question.
You mentioned people providing feedback to FIB, but how can people do this?
Provide feedback?
Mm-hmm.
Just the easiest way is just on our website. There's email addresses. There's a form to fill in, or just email me directly, which is on the website as well. So it's just ceo@nzarm.org.nz. Yeah, and feedback would be good. We have no ego around any of this stuff. We just want to be useful. That's NZARM's approach. So being brutal about some of the stuff is completely fine.
So we've got 2 more questions here. One is, how will NZARM ensure that the CAT remains relevant and updated with changing resource management needs and regulations?
Good question. We're hoping that it's a platform based on skill for one, that is robust. So, you know, this skill set hasn't really changed too much in my career, or 25 plus years, I suppose. The core skills have remained pretty much the same. How you apply them has been quite different. And you can see things like, you know, catchment action plans and freshwater farm plans, and the money that's going into freshwater management, and the amount of policy that we have to digest as well. So we try to keep it skill-based, based on something that's quite robust. The second thing is we really, really want to keep it live, which is why we've built in a land use capability framework recently, or an assessment, which is why we're building these other tools on there. So yeah, it's a great question, because we do have to keep feeding this and making it relevant, as things do change. And maybe, I mean, it's probably one of the reasons why we've avoided kind of regulation and policy, it's because it does change over time. So if there's any further feedback on that, I would love to hear your advice.
Another question, how many people do you think need to be on board before the analyst can be practically useful and representative?
I think it's useful already, just with the sample set, a couple hundred people, although it sounds like we've got more than that at the moment, sort of 250-ish. But my goal is to have 1,000 people on there by this time next year. So I'd really like 1,000 in there. That's one of the reasons why we've made it free, just because the more people go in there, the more we can be useful. If you do go in there as well, you can go into the draw for winning training. There's an opportunity, because you go through and become an NZARM member, you can get $5,000 to create your own training in your own region. There's a bunch of sort of carrots in there as well. And the opportunity, I think the value is just in itself, like being able to network through like-minded people and, you know, create something and grow and learn together. Yeah, good question again.
One last question here. Will NZARM develop training based on the skill gaps?
Yes. Yeah, that is the goal, and was the goal. So yeah, we want to take the randomness out, like we discussed at the start, and be really purposeful around what's important and what are the gaps, what do people need, where are they going in their careers, and identify and do something about it. And we want to do it in lots of different, I think I touched on it briefly, lots of different ways. Not everyone has the time or the money or the ability to leave home and go on a 3-day course to do whatever, soil conservation. So being able to provide online learning, and there's one coming up at the moment, farm systems online learning courses, or self-directed study, or you know, tapping into a mentor and going through some real life examples, lots of different ways. So yeah, we want to make sure that it's meeting those needs.
Awesome. We've got a question from Mel here. She's interested in the weighting of the self-assessment versus training and experience. She's mentioned you can do a lot of courses and still not be confident in a practical sense. Confidence is quite important.
Yeah, it is a really good point. That was the weighting that was tested and given back to us. So one of the problems that I guess in our profession, let's say, you know, natural resource management, a fair chunk of that is learnt on the job. So that is why it was weighted so heavily towards experience. So that's where all the experience goes. 25%, remember, is in that training. And just to hopefully answer your question a little bit here, it's split down. So yeah, you can do training, but remember, we've looked at each training thing to say, is it an introductory? Does it fill this one competency out of 100 and can't remember, 24? And that's great. That's only one competency out of so many across those 13 different fields. So your training, you'd be surprised when you run through and have a look at it. Your training actually doesn't amount to a huge amount in that scorecard. Experience does though. So yeah, if you're doing a course, you've done a 1-day training course, it doesn't give you a big leap in your capability profile, because yeah, it's generally introductory. It's generally sort of fine, but as far as building your capability, 1 day training versus a year in the field, it's quite different. But going back to your statement around confidence, and while it's subjective, I agree. I think it's really good if you feel comfortable enough to teach something. That in itself is an amazing skill, or comfortable enough to apply it is great. Yep, really good point.
Awesome. I think that is all the questions for today. But thank you, Matt, for presenting, and thank you everyone for attending and registering. This webinar has been recorded and will be available on the NZARM website soon. But thanks again, Matt.
Thanks, Eliza. Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to fill out your capability assessment profile. Take care. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you. See ya.